And hello, welcome everyone to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, my name is Steve Lacy.
And my name is Phil Thompson. We're glad to have you here today. We do this podcast every week. We're a company that helps churches use technology, streaming video, mobile apps, and even website templates and church management stuff. We are a content delivery network as well. And so we're glad to have you here with us. Steve Lacy is our founder and CEO. Mike Gray, who's been with us a lot the last few months, is not here today. But we're going to continue in this pandemic era of podcast. I think this is like podcast number 253, I think, actually. I actually looked it up, Steve. I'm actually being honest there. Usually I make up some number, but it's like 253, at least on the Apple one. Does that sound right to you?
That sounds about in the neighborhood.
Okay. We've been doing podcasts a lot longer. But anyhow, all right. So today, Steve, what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about 7 shifts that churches need to make because of the coronavirus. And these are shifts not to get through the coronavirus, but just because there was a coronavirus.
Yeah. And of course, obviously at this recording, there still is and probably will be for quite a while. So we shamelessly stole this stuff from Tony Morgan, who's a friend of mine. I met him one time many years ago, so now I qualify him as a friend. But he is actually, just a little background. You should really look up Tony Morgan. TonyMorganLive.com is one of his websites. He also is he's really a church consultant now. The Unstuck Group is what he goes by. His team goes by, and they do a great job. They're good people. And I'd heartily recommend this. So let's talk a little about these 7 shifts that churches really do need to make. This pandemic has changed the way we do church. And I really believe, and many other people out there believe, that it's going to change the way we do church forever.
Right. Yeah, he talks about it being the new normal.
Yeah.
So this is all related to the new normal.
Yeah. And so these things, I think, will be very helpful for you if you're a pastor, associate pastor, somebody leading your church in some capacity on the board, leadership team, key volunteer. A lot of tech volunteers listen to us. And so this is really good stuff to at least ponder and think about. I think it's good stuff. And I think that it's important for us to implement these things because, it's things have changed. And, it's actually not such a bad thing. I mean, the pandemic obviously is terrible, but some of this changing might be a good thing for the local church in the long run.
Exactly. All right, so we dive into it here.
Let's do it.
All right. So so there's shifts from things that we're doing today to things we should be doing in the future. So there's 7 of those shifts. So currently the first shift is shifting from analog to digital.
Shifting from analog to digital. Now, look, I mean, obviously this is Captain Obvious here, right? I mean, this is the way it is. But what we need to understand is this is not something that's going to go away. Digital is not going to go away when the pandemic goes away. It's here to stay. And, churches need to make this shift. They're making it now. It needs to be the primary platform that they do everything with rather than just streaming the Sunday services.
Right. And I get the question a lot, well, after the pandemic's over, do you think the big rush is going to be over? And this kind of lines up with my crystal ball with that. I think the church is shifting to digital, and this pandemic forced a bunch of churches that were not digital to move to digital, but I don't see them abandoning digital after once we're in our new normal again. I don't see there's going to be a few, but I don't think the majority of people are going to go, well, I streamed for COVID, but now we can meet in person. So let's get rid of the streaming part or any digital element. I think it's going to be here to stay.
Well, and something to keep in mind, and that is, not to knock the church, but typically speaking, we're always a little behind everything, and companies and businesses and all over globally have made this shift years ago, and it's time that the church continues that process and shifts over. So not just Sunday morning, but other tools and other things that you can do, which we'll get into here in a moment, that you can have that will be digital to help people, to help connect people, to help people grow spiritually, to help people, on their walk with God. So it's we secular companies have done this, and I'm sure there's some people saying, well, yeah, but we're not secular. Well, I understand that, but the world today, is looking for answers, and we need to be where the world is, and the world is looking at digital. Jesus and his followers always went to where the people were, and the people are online. And so we need to be that as well with our ministries.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, some people may take exception that, we're not salesmen. I think, yeah, we are salesmen, and we need to employ the best tools to, to market and sales to reach the lost. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, number 2 on our list, and some of these are a little subtle. So, the second one is shifting from teaching to equipping.
A shift from teaching to equipping. So I think the difference here is many of us are used to what I would call one-way communication. We're teaching, we're in front of people on a platform, and even if we're doing digital stuff, it's a one-way street, it's a one-way communication. But what we're talking here is more than just one way. It's two-way. It's interaction. Teaching, very important, obviously. It's very important to teach people, but there's a little bit more to just teaching. It's giving people tools, resources that they need to engage the scriptures, to practice spiritual disciplines, to really live out God's purpose in their lives.
All right, exactly. So I used to really enjoy when I lived in California. Went to Fullerton EV Free under Chuck Swindoll.
I remember him.
Yeah. Yes, and he's still around, and it was a great teaching. I thought I was just gobbling it up. So this is pretty much equipping you to represent Christ and go deeper and be able to win others to Christ. And so it's beyond just the teaching. You need the teaching too, but this is kind of a shift from teaching to equipping as well.
Yeah, and again, that's finding tools and using tools online to help people fulfill that. And so it's more than just sitting there listening to a podcast like you're doing now, or listening to a teaching video. It's more than that. Yeah, again, important things to do, but other things you can use as well to help people get interactive. Building things out on your website so that people, maybe a forum and some things where people can correspond with each other, maybe on your website. Make your website kind of the hub for that, and allow people to connect with each other.
All right. Next on our list, number 3 of the shifts that we need to make post-COVID in our new normal world is a shift from gathering to connecting.
Shift from gathering to connecting. So again, kind of launching off what we just said earlier, you can see, and the nice thing about the Unstuck group that put this out is that they work with a lot of churches. And so they gather a lot of data. And even before this crisis, people had less and less time to just get together at church. And churches, adding more and more events to the calendars for churches, not really solving the problem, not really making progress here. And so even so, after the crisis, people are understanding that they need friendship, they need relationships. It's difficult, and let's not. There are some churches gathering right now, and we get that, but there's a lot of people that aren't coming back to church because of the pandemic, because of concern, and rightfully so. And so there's a feeling in many people's lives that they're like isolated. I was a jail chaplain. I was chaplain at Pima County Jail in Tucson for almost 20 years, and they had a thing they called, what was it? Solitary confinement, right? And nobody wanted to be in solitary confinement. And many people are feeling that way to some degree during this pandemic. And so we need each other. We need to connect with each other. And again, as we work with digital stuff here, we need to figure out ways not just to get people watching, but to connect and interact.
Right. And this is even, I mean, this is geared towards the new normal, right? So 2 years
Mhm.
from now, right? Everybody's
Right.
going, people are gathering again,
Hmm.
where everyone's gathering, and it's just a shift from
Yeah.
focus on the gathering to the connections. So
Yep.
reinforcing and enabling the connections as people,
Yeah. Yeah.
gather again.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing wrong with gathering, but there has to be more than just coming and going,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. So
All
this
right.
is all, so those, all part of the new normal here. So the fourth one on our list for the new normal will be, and this is kind of, I don't know, interesting, a shift from global to
Hmm.
local.
Yeah. So I did, I worked with a missionary organization for about 2 years, and I feel very strongly that doing missionary work and supporting missions are, it's very important. It certainly is very valuable to do. But according to, well, I'll just give you, if you listen to Tony Morgan, he feels like churches have been wasting too much of their money sending people to Africa and Asia and other distant parts of the globe. Uh, and especially during this difficult time where finances are hard, uh, he is recommending that people really shift their thinking to what's going on around their community right now.
Mhm.
So, what can people do in some aspect, even though it's a pandemic? What can they do to help the people in their city, in their community, in their neighborhood? And again, we're not knocking missionaries. I was kind of one temporarily. I went to Japan for 2 months. I was in Mexico for a couple months. I've supported missionaries, and they're very important. But during this time of crisis in our lives, in our communities, uh, churches need to really look at mission fields that are very close by to them and try to help out those. There's people out of work. People have lost their jobs.
Right.
I'm very grateful, for my job, but people are hurting out there.
Yeah. And I mean, I continue to look through this the lens of the new normal. So, this is post-crisis as well.
Right.
And I think what's, another thing that's going on is the culture around us has dramatically changed. And it's going to continue to be this way for, decades. And so I think there's some urgency with reaching the local culture as opposed to before we were, I think back of, the 50s, and we're all doing great. And so we're going to send missionaries off to these other places. And now the missionaries are needed here locally as the culture shifts around us. So
Yeah.
it's going
Yeah.
to be
There's organizations that we could certainly be a part of in our community to help those. All right. So send your cards and letters, folks. If you don't agree with that, just send them to Steve Lacy.
for sure. All right. Number 5 on our list is shift from overspending to generosity.
All right. Well, here we go again. It's pandemic and staffing expenses, and we knew even before this crisis that you know there's been decline. There's been a decline. The churches have been declining over the last 15 years or more. And there's a stat here that declining churches have 35% more paid staff. Declining churches have 35% more paid staff than growing churches. So declining churches have more staff. Now, again, we're getting this data from the Unstuck Group, which works with lots of churches, especially churches that are hurting and trying to help them. And so, with the decline in giving, this crisis is going to really force our churches to reduce their expenditures for staff and facilities. And in the long run, it should help churches free up, some resources to partner with, again, some of these local agencies I mentioned earlier, and addressing some spiritual as well as physical and mental health needs in their communities.
Right, exactly. So a lot of this is as churches mature and they start to get comfortable, they start looking inward and saying, oh, we need to hire another staff person, or we need to invest in that, or do this. And
Right.
it's really a shift from, you can maybe, rephrase this thing fairly as rather than shift from overspending to generosity, to focus your financial stewardship from internal to external.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes again we try to solve the problem by throwing money at something, and it just there's much more to it than that, especially if your church is in a decline.
All right. All right. Number 6 on our list is a shift from complexity to simplicity.
A shift from complexity to simplicity. So, again, during this crisis, the stories are starting to pop up that churches are realizing that they're having to simplify their strategies, and that is a very good thing, because again, from previous research, this idea of trying to keep people busy, people busy in church activities, it doesn't make people more like Jesus. It just keeps them busy. And we've kind of gone into this thinking over the years that we just give people more stuff to do and that will help them grow. And there's a much bigger picture than this, and the simplicity of Jesus and his teachings and the lifestyle really will lead people to grow spiritually, not just a bunch of programs that are thrown at them.
Right, exactly. All right, number 7 on our list is, and this a lot of churches I think are starting to implement this as well, is a shift from accounting attendees, and right now viewers, to engagement. So
Yeah.
There's been a lot of, I don't know if we've talked about it or not, but just a shifting on what you're measuring. Another one is engagement is kind of, they also talk about getting people to make the next step. So that's a form of engagement as well. So you measure your success not on how many people showed up or how many people, watched you online, which if you're using Facebook, they'll definitely flatter you with some crazy numbers. But
There's no bitterness there, is there? There's
no, just, but rather than counting the attendees, to start counting, if you want to get, if you want to measure your results, is you measure engagement, or how many people have moved from, step 1 to step 2, or step
Right.
4 to step 6, 5, that sort of thing. How many people are progressing in their maturity?
Right. As I was going through this, I was really thinking of my own church, and I remember how excited we were, that we have really good numbers, or that's really good. We're good numbers. But then I remember thinking, well, we have numbers, but what's going on? We don't see these people. We don't talk to these people. I mean, we do a few, but then we actually have, over the last couple of months, really worked hard at trying to figure out a way to engage people. And so we're actually building some things up that will bring some engagement. And one of the nice things, if we can, I know you don't like to do this, but I'll shamelessly plug us, streamingchurch.tv. We have a great follow-up tool that makes it very easy to follow up with visitors that come to your website, to come to your streaming platform. And so that's one step in helping to, see who's there, sending out an email. It can be automated. You can customize it. And that's one step in doing so. I had somebody just the other day responded to one of our automatic follow-ups. They came to our service, and she wrote back and says, "Thank you so much for following up with me. I just found you guys online." She says, I really love you guys. I like what's going on. I want to find out more. And how can I be more involved, even though we're only online? And she actually sent us $50. I mean, this was a total stranger, never walked in the door when we were on ground. And we've had several people, I don't know if they've sent us money, but we've had several people respond and say, thanks for the follow-up. I want to learn more. And so it opens the door. So you're not just counting attendees. You're not just counting numbers. You know, how well are you engaging people? How well are you connecting with them? And of course, you know, we all know very well that Jesus was making disciples, and his whole message was to his disciples was go and make more disciples and connect people. So just really a powerful shift here that we need to make, which again, as you would say, the new normal, which carries into uh, whatever happens down the road a few years from now. You know, we need to remember it's all about engaging people.
Right, exactly. I think back to there's an elder at our church that you're familiar with that kind of beats himself up sometimes. Like, I didn't win that person to Christ. And I'm like, it's not I don't think it's a one and done kind of thing. I think there's people will take 10, 12, 40 steps to get to Christ. And if you move them from step 21 to 22,
Yep.
and you can measure that, that's what you need to measure. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's different, and it's not a one size fits all deal. And how we engage people and the patience we use and the things that we do really make it a very important thing to do. So so good stuff. So once again, 7 shifts churches need to make for the new normal: analog to digital, teaching to equipping, gathering to connecting, global thinking to local thinking, overspending to generosity, complexity to simplicity, and then, as we just said here, attendance to engagement.
All right. Sounds good. It's good stuff.
It is good stuff. It is good stuff to keep in mind as we continue to go not only through the pandemic, as you've said, but as we continue to work with our churches and grow them down the roadways. Good stuff. All right. So my thanks to Tony Morgan and his team from the Unstuck Company. And if you want to add to this list or give us some thoughts or feedback, we always are happy to hear from you. Support@streamingchurch.tv. We do have a lot of tools to help churches. Many of these things we've talked about. You know, we've got other podcasts, we've got blogs at streamingchurch.tv that, we exist to try to help. And we want to help churches not only use technology, which we say quite a bit, but also help the churches, continue to grow and help equip people in leadership. So thank you so much, Jackson Stephen Lacy, for your time.
All right. Glad to be here.
Did anybody ever call you Jackson growing up? That's your first name, Jackson.
I have some friends that call me Jackson all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, just for joking around.
Just.
Yeah. I tried to change it in 7th grade, and my teacher said, "No, what are you trying to do?" So I thought, there were no Jacksons. I mean, it's a super popular name now,
Right.
But as I was growing up, there were no Jacksons. I thought, I can be the only Jackson. There's 1,000 Steves out here. So.
Well, my son Graydon, his real name is Philip Graydon Thompson, Graydon's after my dad, Philip's after me. But when he went to school, he was registered as Philip Graydon Thompson. And so they just called him Philip, and he would never correct them. I mean, he never asked him to call him Graydon or anything, which, to me, that, that's kind of a unique name too, Graydon.
Right.
So anyhow, he didn't care. So he's got friends that call him Philip and other friends that call him Graydon. So, all right, well, we're done. We're rambling on here. Folks, thank you so much for your time today. We do appreciate it. I'm sure Mike Gray will be with us next week. And please take care of yourselves. This has been the Church Solutions Podcast. He is Steve Lacy. I'm Phil Thompson. Take care of yourself. We'll see you again next time.